Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Behind the Zmirot series. I'm here to talk to you about the song Tzur Mishelo, which is one of my favorites, probably because we never sing it in our house, and I think it's really fun. It just has a really upbeat, cheerful tune. The recording I found on YouTube that I shared with you is definitely not my favorite, but the tune that they are singing is my favorite tune. And I just always find it puts me in a good mood. It's very upbeat and sort of jolly and happy, and it just makes me feel good. So that's why I wanted to share it with you. What's really fascinating about this Zemer is that it isn't actually a song about Shabbat at all. It really doesn't discuss Shabbat. Really what it discusses is benching. And if you look carefully and read the four stanzas, you'll see that they each parallel the four brachot, the four blessings we say during benching. So it opens up with Tzur Mishelo achalnu, barchu emunai, sevanu vehotarnu kidbar Hashem. The rock from whom we've eaten, come and bless him, my fellow faithful or my fellow believers. We've sort of had our fill, we've eaten enough, we've been satisfied, and we have leftovers, just like Hashem said. So what is this barchu emunai? Let's bless him, my fellow believers. That, sounds reminiscent of the zimun, which we have at the beginning of benching, when one person at the table calls everyone else to come and bench. And that's essentially what we are doing. We're calling everyone together to praise Hashem for the food he gave us. The fact that it calls him Tzur, the rock, just is I think, an image of Hashem just being consistent, that we know he's always going to be there. We can always rely on him. He's not going anywhere. There's obviously more that could be said about this terminology, but I think that maybe the mechaber of this Zemer, who we don't know who he is, he doesn't identify himself in acrostic, which a lot of the other ones do have. We don't know who wrote it, and we know it's pretty old, but we don't know who wrote it. But he chooses to refer to Hashem as the Tzur because he's talking about it in the context of us knowing that we're always going to be sustained. And the first stanza, I think, really picks up on this. The first stanza, it parallels the first bracha of benching, which is what my daughter calls the Hazanis bracha, because that's the only one she sings. So when she has bread, she turns to me and she says, "Oh, okay, are we supposed to say Hazanis?" And that's how it starts, Hazan es olamo, right? Which just sounds exactly like the beginning of the first bracha of benching. And it discusses the subject of Hashem being the sustainer of his creations. And it's not just that he feeds us, though. It's more than that. He's not just Hazanet Olamo. It's not just that he sustains this world, but he's also Ro'enu Avinu. And this idea that he's our shepherd, he's our father. The reason Hashem sustains us isn't just because he should sustain us, but he set up the world in this way that his creations would need sustenance so that he could have a relationship with us. There's this idea that when the snake convinced Adam and Chava to eat from the tree in Gan Eden, that he used to have legs, and Hashem took his legs away as his punishment and said that he would eat from the dust of the earth. So you could say, well, why would you eat from the dust of the earth? Why is that a punishment? No matter where he goes, he'll always have food. But that was the point. Hashem was so angry with him, he wanted nothing to do with him. He wanted him to have no reason that he would ever have to call out to Hashem again. Versus Adam and Chava, who were going to need to work the land, and they were going to need rain and proper, agricultural conditions in order to survive. They would be forever in a relationship with Hashem. And this is this idea that when Hashem sustains us, it's not just that he sustains us, he feeds us as someone with whom we have a relationship. And we say that we're going to acknowledge him, we're going to praise Hashem for sustaining us with his food and with his wine. So that's the first stanza. The second stanza parallels the second bracha of benching. What is the second bracha of benching all about? It's about the land of Israel. And in this stanza, we say, Bashir v'kol toda nevarech le'elokeinu al eretz chemda tova, right? With a song and a voice of gratitude or a voice of thanks, we're going to bless Hashem for the land of Israel. And I think this idea is that it's not just that. In the first stanza, we said we're going to acknowledge and praise Hashem for sustaining us, but now we're going beyond just acknowledging or praising, we're singing. Why? Because Hashem couldn't create the world and create us needing food and not give us a way to get food. But he didn't have to give us the land of Israel. Hashem, to some extent, has to sustain us. That would be so wrong if he didn't. But he doesn't have to give us the land of Israel. He didn't have to promise us the land of Israel. And it ends, the stanza, again, obviously there's more to say about it, but it ends saying that the emet Hashem, the Hashem is truth. Why is he truth? Because he fulfills his promises. He promised Abraham that the land was going to be ours, and it was given, right? After we left Mitzrayim, when we traveled through the desert, we came back and we were able to inherit the land of Israel, just like Abraham had been promised all those years before. And I think this is also maybe a little bit of a tefillah, a prayer for the future, that again, we would inherit the land, which in our days, we have the amazing zchus, the amazing merit of being able to see that come to fruition in this stage of Jewish history. Then the third bracha is about Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, and we are praying for it to be rebuilt. The original bracha of benching actually was established by David and Shlomo, and it was not praying for the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash, but thanking Hashem that we had the Beis Hamikdash. But once it was destroyed, the bracha was changed to a prayer for the future Beis Hamikdash to be rebuilt and for us to be able to be back there. And this third stanza again says, "Rachem b'chastecha al amcha tzurenu," that Hashem should have mercy on us, on His nation. Al tzion mishkan kvodecha, right, on Zion, on the Mishkan, the place where Hashem rests His presence. This is all Yavo v'yigalenu. We're davening that Hashem should come, He should redeem us. This is all clearly about the rebuilding of Yerushalayim, which perfectly parallels the bracha of Yerushalayim that we have in benching. And then finally we come to the fourth bracha of benching. So the fourth bracha of benching was instituted a little while later, and it is the latest one that was established, and it's only rabbinic in nature. I shouldn't say only, it is rabbinic in nature. And it is actually quite different in that it was established as a response to a miracle that happened to the people who were killed during the Bar Kokhba revolt in Beitar. The Beitar was sort of the last standing stronghold of the Bar Kokhba revolts, and they were under siege for 3.5 years, I believe. And then when they were finally attacked by the Romans, they were massacred. And the way the Gemara describes it, there was just blood in the streets. They actually used the Jewish blood to fertilize their vineyards. There's all kinds of sort of crazy, gory stories that went on there. But the miracle that happened was that the Roman emperor wouldn't allow the Jewish bodies that were, the whole city was massacred. We weren't allowed to bury the bodies, but that I saw one account, I have to look it up, but one account said a couple of months, another one said 3 years, that these bodies sat and that they did not decompose. And that miraculously, when a new emperor came to power, he said we could bury the bodies. And at that point, the bodies had not decomposed and they were able to be given a proper burial. And in response to that miracle, this fourth bracha, which is referred to as Hatov V'Meitiv, the God who is good and does good, was established. And what does this bracha say, right? It says, Hamelech Hatov V'Meitiv L'Kol, the God who is good and who does good to everyone, who Hativ, who Meitiv, who Yetiv Lanu, right? He did good, He does good, and He will do good for us. This is who we're thanking, that Hashem did all this good for us. So Rav Kook has this beautiful explanation of this bracha. He says that this bracha is really about hope. After the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, when Jewish people davened to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, they weren't davening for this far-off future event that someday Mashiach will come and rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. They really thought it could happen like any day now because they had just had it. So it felt so palpable and so possible that they could have it again, that they could rebuild again. But that hope was completely wiped out once Beitar fell, because when Beitar fell, there was just this sense of loss. That was the end of the Bar Kokhba revolt. It was like the true victory of the Romans at that point. And at that point, although maybe they didn't lose hope that they'd never have a Beis Hamikdash, it was no longer this sense that it could happen immediately. It could happen anytime. And that is what Rav Kook says this bracha was all about, that when the bodies of Beitar didn't decompose, it was a sign of hope, a sign that Hashem's still with us. Even through all of this, Hashem is by our side and He's watching over us and He's making miracles happen. And just like He made these bodies, stay fully intact, He's going to help us rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. And that's what this bracha is about, which is why maybe it says, Hu Hativ, He did good for us. Hu Meitiv, He does good for us right now. But Hu Yetiv Lanu, in the future, He will do good for us as well. And if you look at this final stanza of Tzur Mishelo, when you first read it, it doesn't really sound to be talking about any of this good that Hashem did for us. But if you think about it in the context of how Rav Kook explains the bracha, it's really all about the future hope. Yibaneh HaMikdash, right? In the future, the Beis Hamikdash will be built. Ir Tzion Temaleh, the city of Zion will be filled. B'Shem Nashir Shir Chadash, Uvir Nana Na'aleh, and we're going to sing new songs, and we're going to be dancing and joyous singing and go up to Jerusalem. There's this real sense of we're almost like planning, we're getting ready for this future celebration that's going to happen when we finally get to rebuild our Beis Hamikdash and we finally get to be fully in our place in Yerushalayim. And this hope is the hope that the people found when Beitar was first destroyed. But then when they saw that Hashem was by their side with these bodies not decomposing, they were able to see this future and see this hope that maybe it doesn't feel like it's going to happen right now, but it is going to happen. And we have this emunah, and that's what the bracha is about in benching to some extent. And that's what this stanza is about in Tzur Mishelo. So there's a lot more to say, and I encourage you to read it over this Shabbat, sing it at your table, and see what other parallels you can find. The way that the Zemer finishes off, it says, Harachaman hanikdash, yitbarach v'yitzaleh, right? The merciful one who is holy, who should be sanctified, yitbarach v'yitzaleh, he should be blessed, and he should be elevated, al kos yain maleh, on a full cup of wine, which is a reference to the idea that we're supposed to bench al hakos. We're supposed to do birkat hamazon, holding a cup of wine. And at the conclusion of benching, the person who did the zimun should say the bracha of Borei Pri Hagafen, and that elevates our benching to a higher level. So too, just like we had these 4 stanzas reflecting benching, we finish off with benching on the wine, finishing off with this full cup of wine, which is representative of all the blessing that we feel we have from Hashem, which we're sort of acknowledging our gratitude for over Shabbat. Sorry, over the meal. So over Shabbat, I hope you will enjoy singing this song and thinking and taking a moment to pause and really have gratitude and consider how much Hashem really does sustain us and create a relationship with us through that sustenance, and be able to sort of see those messages in Tzur Mishelo. Enjoy and have a wonderful Shabbos.